Okay. Hello and welcome to This Is What We Learned This Week, where we talk about what we learned this week. I'm Ryan Harp.
I'm Vivian Huang.
I'm Anika Hamad.
And I'm Diana Theisinger.
First try.
Yeah!
Nailed it.
So, who wants to start?
I'm not ready yet.
I'll start. So I have a habit of going to like SWEM's like graphic novel section whenever like midterms or finals are happening, just to randomly pick up a graphic novel. And I picked this one up, CQ, and now I'm ending up using it for a final paper in one of my classes because I want to learn about like the culture of loneliness and like how capitalism, individualism kind of plays into that. And something really interesting I learned in here was like in the first half of the 20th century, I think they said that like there was a whole phenomenon of like medical phenomenon of, like parents shouldn't touch their kids, hug them, hold them, give them affection, because like they were like, it'll make your kid weak, it'll make your kid more susceptible to disease or something like that. And there was this really crazy immoral like primate researcher scientist guy, Harry Harlow I think his name is, and he did like experiments on monkeys that were like very inhumane and like separating them from their mothers and just like kind of proving that wrong. Though the way he did it was like really cruel and stuff. And there was like these things he did where he like gave these baby monkeys like fake mothers that were just like dolls, and he like set some of them up in a way that would hurt them, like shoot out freezing gusts of air, or like spikes would come out of them, and just like he observed all that and kind of just made a whole like counter to like babies do need human affection, but like it was kind of crazy. So that was something I learned this week.
I had heard about that.
Yeah.
Starting off on a really dark note. Okay.
Yeah.
Don't touch children. I had heard about that actually.
Well, that advice can, apply in different contexts. So.
No. Yeah.
Oh,
That's not what I meant. Yeah. I meant that I knew about that fad. I will start because this actually obliquely connects to what you talked about.
All right.
In my old English class recently, we read a poem called The Wanderer. And the title is not from the period, that was added later by editors. But in the poem, one of the speakers who narrates it is referred to as the Erdstappe, which is where the Wanderer title comes from. But Erdstappe just means earth stepper.
Okay.
And I thought that was really interesting.
For me, I think one really interesting thing I learned in one of my classes, we're doing a unit on accessibility, and we learned about this thing called a drive-by lawsuit, which is basically like, apparently, so like the ADA, like it basically has like very strict requirements for like businesses having like specific, like they have to have ramps and like make their whole place like accessible for people with disabilities. I found out there's like people who take advantage of that. So these lawyers will literally like drive by like businesses and like establishments and just see these like really small like violations of the ADA, and then recruit like disabled people to be the plaintiff and sue them so they can rack up a bunch of lawyer fees. And I just thought that was like super interesting. And like a lot of the business owners were like, I didn't even know this was a thing. Like someone could have just told me and I would have fixed it, but now they're facing like thousands of dollars in like a lawsuit. Dang. So I just thought that was so interesting. And I think like disability is not really something we cover a lot in classes traditionally. So sure. I was like, whoa, I didn't know this was like a whole like subsection of a law that's been going on.
All right, I'll make a connection to accessibility. So I watched part of an interesting TED Talk or TEDx talk about the idea that accessibility is not the same thing as inclusion. And so, or access is not the same as inclusion. And so we focus a lot in higher ed on improving diversity outcomes and access to the higher education space, and looking at different populations who haven't historically been represented or had access to academia. So we look at diversity in terms of socioeconomic background, and before the most recent Supreme Court ruling in terms of like race and ethnicity. And so what happens then? What happens when we have made the institution more accessible for those historically underrepresented populations? Are they necessarily than included. And the example that sticks with me from this week is he was talking about the term office hours. And he said the first time that he was sitting in a college class and the professor said, oh, my office hours are like Tuesday afternoon, his interpretation of that, because the speaker was a first generation college student, his interpretation of that was, oh, that's a time when I should not interrupt you because you're doing your work in your office. And thanks for letting me know. Like, I won't bother you at that time. And just the importance of little things like professors defining office hours and talking about this is a way to use them.
Oh, that's so interesting. In one of my other classes, like, we're actually, like, our, like, class-wide, like, project is basically designing a PSA. And the one we chose, like, our topic is, like, office hours and why students should use them, and our slogan is like professors are people too, and like so we've been trying to like figure out ways to like make office hours seem more accessible to students who may be like hesitant or like don't really understand what they're used for. So that's like really interesting.
I definitely want to have a follow-up conversation with you about that. We have a quick bite coming up about like advice for faculty about how to increase student use of office hours. So
Okay, fine.
We had a podcast episode about this last year,
Whoa.
and
Oh my
I
gosh.
still have never been to an office hours session.
What?
In
The
your
entire
whole-
time.
Okay, but you don't have the like, I'm afraid and I don't know what to
No.
do. You just haven't gone.
I just haven't. I have never needed. I've never felt the need to go.
Oh
But-
my goodness. We're going to have a follow-up conversation too, sir.
That's crazy.
Oh man. I will make a case here, and Roy, I'm going to go over time. Sorry, just cut this whole thing out, okay? I'll make a case here that the best value you get from your undergraduate education has nothing to do with any of the classes you take. It's all about who you know.
I agree.
I agree.
So building that network, including your faculty members, like you never know when you're going to need a letter of recommendation or they're going to connect you with a research opportunity.
Okay, well, I've gone and talked to my professors. Just
Okay.
I've never gone. It's never been during office hours, and I've never like gone to office hours for help. Is what I mean.
Okay.
Like I have relationships with my professors, and we discuss things. I've just never gone to office hours.
Okay. All right. Connect the dots.
dots.
That's your job, right?
Well, I brought this up and I said it was related, but I didn't explain why. My Old English stuff.
Right.
Because that poem is all about loneliness and being torn away from your kinsmen and stuff like that.
I see.
And so I thought that was a good connection between the
Thank you.
discourse on loneliness you presented. And then I also think the inclusivity, accessibility thing connects because, you know, just having access to a community doesn't mean you're included in it. And that
And
can be
that-
an alienating
For sure.
thing.
Wow, you did that.
Well done.
I'm proud of you.
I did it. I integrated it all.
Roy, are you
What
proud
more
of
can you
us?
ask for, Roy? Like, I feel like
All right, so
if you get it on the first take, you know?
close out then.
All right.
Close out, somebody.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us for what we learned this week.
Can you say that looking to them and not to me?
I wanted to know if that's what you were looking for closeout. Okay. We're so glad that, well, thanks for inviting me to what we learned this week. It was a last minute invite, and normally I say no to those, but I'm glad that I came this time.
Hey.
We'll see you next week.
Yeah. You won't see me next week.
Oh.
I mean, we'll see
Oh, there we go.
you
There we go. Break the
next
fourth wall.
week.
All right.
Yeah.